Welcome to the Daily Bite. I'm your host, Reverend Steve Andrews. Our chapter is from Numbers 32. Now the people of Reuben and the people of Gad had a very great number of livestock. And they saw the land of Jazer and the land of Gilead, and behold, the place was a place for livestock. And so the people of Gad and the people of Reuben came and said to Moses and to Eleazar the priest, and to the chiefs of the congregation, Ataroth, Daban, Jazer, Nimrah, Heshbon, Elah, Sabam, Nebo, and Baon, the land that Yahweh struck down before the congregation of Israel, is a land for livestock, and your servants have livestock. And they said, if we have found favor in your sight, let this land be given to your servants for a possession. Do not take us across the Jordan. But Moses said to the people of Gad and to the people of Reuben, shall your brothers go to war while you sit here? Why will you discourage the heart of the people of Israel from going over into the land that Yahweh has given them? Your fathers did this when I sent them from Kadesh Barnea to see the land. For they went up to the valley of Eshcol and saw the land, and they discouraged the heart of the people of Israel from going into the land that Yahweh had given them. And Yahweh's anger was kindled on that day, and he swore, saying, surely none of the men who came up out of Egypt from 20 years old and upward shall see the land that I swore to give to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, because they have not wholly followed me. None, except Caleb the son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, and Joshua the son of Nun, for they have wholly followed Yahweh. And Yahweh's anger was kindled against Israel, and he made them wander in the wilderness 40 years, until all the generation that had done evil in the sight of Yahweh was gone. And behold, you have risen in your father's place, a brood of sinful men, to increase still more the fierce anger of Yahweh against Israel. For if you turn away from following him, he will again abandon them in the wilderness, and you will destroy all this people. Then they came near to him and said, we will build sheepfolds here for our livestock and cities for our little ones, but we will take up arms, ready to go before the people of Israel until we have brought them to their place. And our little ones shall live in the fortified cities because of the inhabitants of the land. And we will not return to our homes until each of the people of Israel has gained his inheritance. For we will not inherit with them on the other side of the Jordan and beyond, because our inheritance has come to us on this side of the Jordan to the east. So Moses said to them, if you will do this, if you will take up arms to go before Yahweh for the war, then every armed man of you will pass over the Jordan before Yahweh until he has driven out his enemies from before him, and the land is subdued before Yahweh. And then after that you shall return and be free of obligation to Yahweh and to Israel, and this land shall be your possession before Yahweh. But if you will not do so, behold, you have sinned against Yahweh, and be sure your sin will find you out. Build cities for your little ones, and folds for your sheep, and do what you have promised. And the people of Gad and the people of Reuben said to Moses, your servants will do as my Lord commands. Our little ones, our wives, our livestock, and all our cattle shall remain there in the cities of Gilead, but your servants will pass over, every man who is armed for war, before Yahweh to battle, as my Lord orders. So Moses gave command concerning them to Eleazar the priest, and to Joshua the son of Nun, and to the heads of the fathers' houses of the tribes of the people of Israel. And Moses said to them, if the people of Gad and the people of Reuben, every man who is armed to battle before Yahweh, will pass with you over the Jordan, and the land shall be subdued before you, then you shall give them the land of Gilead for a possession. However, if they will not pass over with you armed, they shall have possessions among you in the land of Canaan. And the people of Gad and the people of Reuben answered, what Yahweh has said to your servants we will do. We will pass over armed before Yahweh into the land of Canaan, and the possession of our inheritance shall remain with us beyond the Jordan. And Moses gave to them, to the people of Gad, and to the people of Reuben, and to the half-tribe of Manasseh, the son of Joseph, the kingdom of Sihon, king of the Amorites, and the kingdom of Og, king of Bashan, the land and its cities with their territories, the cities of the land throughout the country. And the people of Gad built Dibon, Ataroth, Aroer, Atroth Shaphan, Jazer, Jogbaha, Beth Nimrah, and Beth Haran, fortified cities and folds for the sheep. And the people of Reuben built Heshbon, Elah, Kiriathaim, Nebo, and Baal-meon, their names were changed, and Sibmah. And they gave other names to the cities that they built. And the sons of Machir, the sons of Manasseh, went to Gilead and captured it and dispossessed the Amorites who were in it. And Moses gave Gilead to Machir, the son of Manasseh, and he settled in it. And Jair, the son of Manasseh, went and captured their villages and called them Havoth Jair. And Noba went and captured Kenath and its villages and called it Noba after his own name. This is the word of the Lord. The Israelites have been promised, going way back. I mean, so here we're probably in the year 1406, or at least close to it. That's the year that Israel enters the promised land for the first time. We're right on the heels of that happening. The very first promise of this promised land is what God gave to Abraham, back when his name was still Abram, many years earlier. Abram was born 2166, and he's 75 years old when God calls him to go to this land. So 2091 minus 1406, 685 years ago. That's a long promise. And it's a long time of waiting for the promise to be fulfilled. And so what we see here, this is troublesome. And Moses sees the trouble, and he warns these people. He cautions them against this. So what's going on in the text? Well, the people of Reuben and Gad, and mentioned later in the chapter, half of the tribe of Manasseh, so 2.5 out of the 12 tribes of Israel, have decided they don't need to cross over the Jordan. They don't actually need to enter the promised land that God has offered to them, promised it to them. This land is good enough. Looking at it logically, what you see is that they've looked at the land of Gilead, which is the land just to the east of the Jordan River, and they see it looks really nice for pasturing our flocks. And we have lots of livestock. So Moses, let us stay here. Let this be our inheritance. Let this be ours. Let us live in this place. But it's not the promised land. An extreme parallel with this would be, what land has God promised you? See if your kids can answer that question. God has promised you a new heaven and a new earth. We call it paradise. We probably most often call it heaven, but that's not really the biblical picture of things. It's a new heaven and a new earth. And if there's a new earth, more than likely that's where we would be. But it's paradise. And it's been promised to you. I mean, imagine saying this. Imagine looking around yourself right now and saying, yeah, what I've got's pretty good. God, this is good enough. Just let me have this. I don't need to enter the promised land. I don't need to be in paradise. This is great. I'll just live right here. Just leave me here. Again, it's a bit extreme, but it shows the absurdity of what these men are saying. They are rejecting the promise of God. That may not be their intent, but it's what they're doing. They don't want to enter the promised land. They don't want to go to the place God has promised to lead them, to the place that he has promised is going to be wondrous for them and flowing with milk and honey. They're turning it down. This is good enough. That's the danger here, and Moses recognizes that danger. He accuses them of being their fathers. Now, this is another one you can review with your kids. Ask your children, what did their fathers do? What is this Moses is referring to starting in verse 8? This is the account of the 12 spies as Moses sends them up to spy out the promised land and then to bring back a report about the land and the people who are there and the cities and the strongholds that they might have. So they can start making battle preparations, I suppose. And those men bring back a bad report because they're afraid. They don't trust that God will give them the land that he has promised to give them. And so they give a bad report, hoping to scare the other people so that they don't go in. And the congregation of Israel turns against Moses and against Aaron and against the two of the spies, Caleb and Joshua, that were trying to give a good report, to the point where they even try and kill them. That's Numbers chapter 13 and 14 from a couple weeks ago. Moses reminds these Reubenites, Gadites, and Manasseites. We don't know that the Manasseites are there at that point, but at least the two tribes are already in the conversation. Moses reminds them that that behavior angered God and brought about this curse that none of them got to see the promised land. And he cautions them that you have risen in your father's place a brood of sinful men to do the same thing. That their wickedness could impact the rest of the congregation. Their selfishness, their sinfulness could harm the whole of Israel. They pledged to take up arms. They pledged to go into the promised land with the rest of Israel to help them overthrow and dispossess, to cast out the tribes that currently live there so that their brothers' tribes can inhabit that land. And then they'll return to Gilead and set that up as their home. Here's a question to ask your kids. Does God need the Reubenites and the Gadites to cross the river to fight that battle? Have they learned nothing from their recent battles? That when they went and God avenged them against the Midianites, not a single soldier of Israel died? Not one. That's unheard of in warfare. It doesn't happen. God doesn't need the Reubenites and the Gadites to go across the river to fight. What prideful thinking. They are rejecting God. I mean, notice the importance of Moses' words and releasing them, right? He gives them this. In verse 22, if 20 actually it starts, if you will do this. So if they take up arms, if they go and they help the other tribes inherit their possessed land in the promised land, if you do this, verse 22, you shall return and be free of the obligation to Yahweh and to Israel. Does that sound right? That almost sounds like disownership, doesn't it? You shall be free from your obligation to Israel. You're no longer a part of this people. Those are tough words. This land shall be your possession before Yahweh. So the Lord will give it to you. But they've disowned the promised land. Moses warns them if they do not do this, if they do not fight with their brothers, that their sin will find them. We can't hide from our sinfulness. That much is certainly true. Our sin will always find us, and The punishment for our sin is death. It's a tough chapter. What seems like it should be such a great blessing that they get this wonderful chunk of land all to themselves. We really have to question if it's as much a blessing as they think it is. Trust in the Lord. As our takeaway from this, trust in the Lord, trust in his promises. Yes, it's been a long time. It's been more than 685 years as we wait for the promised land that is paradise. But don't settle down in this land. Don't hang up your hat on a hook and say, this is good, kicking up your feet and thinking you have it made. This land is not our home. There's a promised land that still awaits us. And I pray that we will see one another in paradise when Christ returns.